Doesn't it seem that some cooking just ebbs and flows like the weather? Kind of goes into a culinary winter, bleak period, gets kind of boring. Well, you know, that's what I like about Mexican food, is it never gets boring to me. All that full flavor, that spiciness, that color. You know, when I dream about Mexican dishes, or when I dream about Mexico at all, definitely dream in color. That's more like it. You know, why does color make us feel so good? I mean, it always affects our mood. Think about being surrounded by some red. Just makes your heart race. Or by some blue. Just makes you chill out. Well, color's got a really important role in nature, too. Color attracts all the pollinators, so it's the way that the plants secure their existence for the future. And just look at this beautiful hibiscus up here. It's got all the pollen out here on the end. Now, insects don't see red, but birds do. So the birds, especially the hummingbirds, will come in there, but when they get to the delicious nectar, they've rubbed all the pollen on their chest feathers. So when they go to the next flower, they pollinate it. Now look at this one over here. I love bougainvillea. Now some plants, they just don't have hardly any little flower. So they turn the leaves, the little bracts around the flower, a color to attract all the pollinators. Wow. Color, color, color. It's a huge inspiration for Mexican culture. Rubs off on all the clothes, it rubs off in the art, the crafts, and of course, it rubs off on the food. Just look at the color palette you've got to work with. Now, I have to tell you that this fruit stall here at Merced Market in Mexico City is not out of the ordinary. You can find this kind of beauty of display, this ripe, gorgeous fruit, many places, in fact, most places all across Mexico. Now, Mexican tropical fruit does best when you're thinking about the oranges and the yellows and the reds. I mean, look at this papaya. This is the orange papaya. When you eat it, it's so full of flavor, not sort of insipid like a lot of the other ones. And what Mexican artist hasn't painted or drawn watermelon? They seem to be an icon of the Mexican society. The beautiful red bananas and these really tasty little yellow bananas that they call niños or dominicos. Did you ever eat mamey? This stuff has got the most beautiful colored flesh. It looks like a sweet potato. Well, it's almost got the texture of a sweet potato, but with many more fruity overtones. That lemon yellow of a fresh guava that's perfectly ripe. Oh man, it makes my mouth water to just smell it. It's my favorite fruit in the Mexican market. And then there's all these great crimsons. I mean, look at this. The pomegranates have just come into season. Now they're green on the outside here with that beautiful red, deep red on the inside. But there's nothing more beautifully red than the prickly pears. Now there's two different kinds here. This is the white, what they call the white or the green prickly pear. But man, look at that color, that crimson. When you puree it, it has an almost purple hue to it. Just gorgeous stuff. Now those crimson prickly pears can be used for all different kinds of things. For a really refreshing beverage, I like to make them into a sorbet. They make a great dessert sauce. So this is the way you clean them.
but cut the two ends off, and then cut a very shallow little strip down the side. Peel back that skin. Boy, what a color that is. And there is the nugget, the center part of that prickly pear. I'm going to put all of these prickly pears that I've already done here together in the food processor. Turn that on and make a puree out of them. Be those little black seeds you hear in there. Now strain the prickly pear puree through a medium mesh sieve to catch all those little black seeds. Pour about 2/3 of it into a saucepan. Add a little sugar to it and cook that over medium heat until it's reduced by half. You should have about a cup. Then let that cool off completely. Now when the cooked mixture is completely cooled off, pour in the remainder of the prickly pear puree. Season it with fresh squeezed lime juice and a nice little bit of orange liqueur. And give it a little taste here, because you might want to add some more sugar to it. Let's see what we've got. No more sugar for me. But I gotta think of something to serve this sauce with. Something like pie, perhaps. A lime pie. Why don't we start with some lime zest? Maybe some lime juice. We could feature that crema, that thick cream like they love in Mexico. Of course, you gotta add some eggs and some sugar to it. What about using some of that masa harina to thicken it just a little bit? Maybe add some perfume from orange juice, maybe a little dash of orange liqueur. Now, when you're making a pie with a creamy filling like the one that I just made, you'll want to pre-bake the pie crust. I'm even going to give it another layer of protection to ensure that it doesn't come out the slightest bit soggy. I'm going to brush it lightly with egg yolk. Now you'll see that egg yolk sets almost immediately in that hot crust. So you don't have to wait any time at all before you pour in your creamy filling. And then slide it back into the oven. This will need to cook for about 45 minutes at 350 degrees. Just done. Let me show you what this looks like. Now, you see that it's slightly puffed around the edge. When I shake the baking sheet, looks like barely set Jell-O. That's exactly what you're looking for. Now let it cool down completely before you cut it or you'll have trouble. Pour a little of that deep red sauce on the plate. Slide on a piece of pie. How about a spoonful of that beautiful, thick cream. And just a thin slice of lime.
When you look at this display, you can see that they enhance it. And you know, I've been to markets all over the world, and no markets have anything on Mexican markets for the beauty of display. They love this kind of pyramid style, but they're meticulous. I was just watching in another part of the market, a woman stacking limes, little tiny key limes up into this gorgeous pyramid. Everything is treat it like it's a little tiny jewel. Just makes your mouth water. You know, there's another way that you can treat this stuff that's really super simple, turning it into a great, refreshing beverage.
Joven, por favor, un agua de tuna. Now, let me tell you what I just ordered. This is prickly pear water, they would call it. More like a soft drink. In fact, this is probably the original soft drink. It's made, muchas gracias. It's made by blending prickly pears, those green prickly pears that I showed you in the market. First you have to peel them, of course, then blend them up with some sugar and water and lime juice and strain the whole thing. You can do it with practically any kind of fruit that there is. Of course, melons are really easy to find in the United States, cantaloupe or honeydew or watermelon. Simply cut up the fruit and put it into a blender. Now, if you're using watermelon, you'll want to use the seedless watermelon so you don't have to worry about those little black seeds in there. Now we're ready to season it. Lime juice is a must, I think, because it heightens all the flavors. Squeeze it with my Mexican lime squeezer. Now I'm going to add a little bit of sugar to the blender jar. This is all preliminary seasonings. We can go back and add more later if we feel like it needs it. A little water. Of course, with the pulpier fruit, you'll want to add even more water than what I just added with watermelon. Now, when it comes to interesting seasonings, why, just use your imagination. I like to put some orange juice when I'm using cantaloupe, or throw a handful of mint in with the honeydew melons. It's all up to you. Give it a little taste. I think it's pretty good. Some people might want it a little bit sweeter than that. And in Mexico, they usually pass it through a strainer. But I like all that wonderful fruit pulpiness. And some beautiful refreshment. In fact, when you walk on the streets in Mexico, you'll find these kind of setups with all different kinds of fruit waters, as they say. I'm not sure I would recommend that you drink them on the street because you don't know the source of the water, but when you come to a place like this, like Arroyo in the southern part of Mexico City, you can certainly trust anything that they would serve to you here. But there's three more that I want to talk to you about, because you'll find these practically anywhere that they have the aguas set up, but they're not made from fruit. This is the classic tamarind water, tamarindo. It's made with the tamarind pod and then sweetened. It's got a wonderful sweet, sour taste to it. This is agua de Jamaica, and it's made from the calyx of this flower in the prickly pear, in the hibiscus family. This tastes a little bit like cranberry juice. Delicious stuff. And then this is the horchata. It's made with rice and cinnamon. It's got a wonderful milky, perfumey kind of flavor. People love this. You'll find it a lot in taquerias because it's a great accompaniment to tacos. You can just imagine what brightness a picture of this would bring to any table. That's a lot of yellow. It almost makes you feel giddy when you walk by it. Most people, when they see big walls of color like that, they think Barragan, because Barragan was the grandfather of modern Mexican architecture. He's the one that sort of developed that whole minimalist approach and the big planes of color, the great textures on things, the geometric designs. Well, this isn't Barragan, so a little bit of history there. This was built in 1968 by Legorreta, and he wasn't even a student of Barragan. He just admired what he had contributed. So when he wanted to show his admiration, he invited Barragan to the opening of another one of his commissions. I think it was a factory up in Toluca. And when Barragan came, he only had one comment.
He said, you miss nature. I mean, you miss the landscape. The nature and the landscape are as much a part of architecture as the building is itself. So he invited Barragan, when he got this commission, to be part of the team, to kind of be a consultant. And that over there is one of the things that came out of that collaboration. The fountain's a little wacky, sort of like we might think those planes of color are kind of wacky. Well, there's a story about this, and who knows if it's true or not, but this is what they say. That they came to the inauguration of the hotel, and well, something broke loose when they turned the fountain on, and the next thing you know, it's swirling around and spewing up like that, and Legorreta said, don't do anything to it, because it sort of captured the three things he thinks really important in Mexican architecture. One is a sense of exuberance, another one is a sense of mystery, and the last is a sense of emotion. You know, those planes of color, they evoke an emotion in you. And that's what they were trying to do with all their architecture. Barragan even said when he paints a wall of color, he's just right back in this little village that he grew up, right in the middle of a fiesta with all its colors, biting into a big piece of crimson watermelon. Well, let me show you on the inside what they did with the sense of space. Legorreta liked to put doors on the sides of rooms, especially rooms that were going to be really grand ones, and he would make those doors sort of small like this, so that when you walked into the room, especially a great grand room like this one, you got that incredible sense of space. But you'll notice here that this room is sort of complete just as it is. There's no sense of being drawn through it, and he loved that because that gave a focus on the people. And he said Mexican life is really all about people together celebrating. So he wanted to create spaces where he could do that. And of course, in this hotel, one of the things that they gave to the different parts of the space to create a sense of strong emotion and a great sense of place was art. They commissioned that wonderful piece by Rufino Tamayo over there. And of course, you know, everybody talks about Rufino Tamayo in terms of his colors, so it fits in perfectly here. That one's sort of more pastel than a lot of his work is, because that one's called the Rainbow. Sort of a little bit otherworldly. He was sort of cubist in his style, beautiful sense of geometric spaces and objects and beautiful colors. Now, if you come over this way, I'll show you something that is a real Legorreta trademark. There's a sense of a big room here, and we've all experienced what that's like. But he said it wasn't a good room for a reception. It's just kind of an entryway. What he wanted you to do was have a sense of coming into the reception like going into a warm and cozy place, almost like going into a cave. So he had us come down like this. And you'll notice that when you emerge into this little cave-like home, the ceiling's a lot lower, and that beautiful ochre color, that yellow that he put on that back wall there, he thought of as sort of the home fires burning. That was sort of like a sense of hearth.
Well, as you can see, all that sophisticated contemporary Mexican architecture really influenced me when I opened my restaurants, Frontera Grill and Topolobampo. But in Mexican cooking, even the simplest, most everyday dishes can reflect Mexico's celebration of color. Now let me show you how to make some little tostadas, colorful little tostadas. You know about tostadas, right? They're little crispy tortillas piled high with all kinds of delicious things. Well, you got to make the tortilla first. You could just fry these very thin tortillas the way that they are, but you want to do something a little special. You want to have a little bit more contemporary presentation to them. We cut long chips, if you will. Now this part we'll save for making chips for guacamole, but these long skinny pieces I'm gonna fry in hot oil until they're completely crisp. That'll take just about a minute. Drain them on paper towels. And then I'll show you what I've got in mind to layer them. Now, a lot of people put lettuce on their tostadas. I'm gonna put lettuce under my little tostadas here. Some beautiful mixed salad greens with a little bit of dressing. This one's made a little bit sweet with balsamic vinegar. Toss that around there. Make a nice bed of it on a pretty plate. Gotta be a flat bed so that you can support these little beauties, and then lay them right on the top. Now I love beans on a tostada, so that'll be the first thing that I put, spooning them right on top of each one. About that much, right on the end of each one of our little tostadas. Then top that with little chicken, diced grilled chicken. That'll give it a beautiful smoky flavor. Spoonful of that thick Mexican cream. A little dice of avocado for creamy smoothness. Some salsa verde. Little chopped tomato, and just a dusting of that fresh Mexican cheese. Just think about those incredible planes of color and the brilliance of the flowers and the foliage and the natural vibrancy of the food. Boy, Mexico really knows how to inspire a fiesta.